For 4 centuries, the Vathek Collective had never lost a prediction. Not one war, not one rebellion, not one civilization. Across thousands of star systems, every major decision had been calculated in advance by a single machine. The Convergence Matrix, a planetary-scale quantum intelligence suspended within an orbital lattice of processors. It did not simply analyze events. It modeled outcomes, political revolutions, economic collapses, fleet movements, even the behavior of individual leaders. With 99.97% accuracy, the Matrix could simulate the future paths of entire civilizations. Wars ended before they began. Rebellions collapsed before the first whisper spread. Entire governments surrendered after seeing the projected outcome. Why fight a battle when defeat was already calculated? And today, the Vathek Collective intended to demonstrate that power. Inside the galactic assembly chamber, thousands of representatives watched probability maps unfold across a massive holographic sphere. Future alliances, trade expansions, conflicts decades before they would happen. For most civilizations, it was overwhelming. For others, it was terrifying. Because if the Matrix could predict everything, then resistance was meaningless. Among the observers stood the newest interstellar civilization, humanity. Unlike the others, the humans watched in silence.
Observer Krell, 9 guided the presentation. Tall, thin, translucent skin stretched over an elongated frame. 6 reflective eyes focused on the chamber. The Convergence Matrix continuously models the behavior of all known civilizations. A new projection appeared. 2 neighboring star systems locked in a trade dispute. Tension rising. Fleet mobilization probability increasing. Then one probability path brightened. Conflict resolution in 8 years through economic integration. The room murmured. Another projection appeared. A military confrontation. 2 fleets preparing for war. The Matrix simulated thousands of battle scenarios, then displayed the outcome. Conflict avoided through diplomatic concession. The demonstration continued. Every crisis already solved. Every outcome already known. The Vathek Collective did not dominate the galaxy with weapons. They dominated with certainty. Then Krell, 9 shifted its gaze toward the newest delegation. Humans. A probability graph appeared above them. Human expansion routes. Trade networks. Colonization paths. One projection highlighted a small frontier colony world. Arcadia Station. A developing settlement housing thousands of human families. Its survival depended on trade routes predicted by the Matrix. Human civilization demonstrates rapid technological advancement, Krell, 9 announced. But behavioral unpredictability remains high. The projection displayed the Matrix's conclusion. Humanity will accept collective economic oversight within 6 standard years. Silence settled across the chamber. Then Ambassador Helena Park slowly raised her hand. Krell, 9 paused. 6 eyes turned toward the human ambassador. Yes, Ambassador Park? Park stepped forward calmly. Her voice was quiet. We appreciate the demonstration. The chamber waited. But predictions only matter if they can be tested. Several delegates exchanged curious looks. The Matrix has verified predictions across 4 centuries. Krell, 9 replied. Park nodded slightly. Then testing them again should not be difficult. Interest spread across the chamber. What form of test does humanity propose? Park answered immediately. A game. A ripple of amusement moved through the assembly. Clarify. Chess. Several alien delegates laughed. Chess was ancient. Primitive. A solved mathematical system. Every possible variation had been analyzed centuries ago. Krell, 9 consulted the Convergence Matrix. The calculation required 0.4 seconds. Victory probability, Vathek Collective, 99.97%. Acceptance probability, 100%. Challenge accepted. The chamber relaxed again. The demonstration would continue. Park stepped aside. From the back of the human delegation, a quiet man approached the central table. Dr. Tobias Grant, Earth's most accomplished chess strategist. The first human who would compete directly against the most powerful predictive intelligence in the galaxy. 1 hour later, the chamber was full. Observers from 80 civilizations filled the galleries. The Convergence Matrix projected a perfect holographic chessboard above the central table. Probability trees expanded outward in glowing lines. Every possible game variation. Every tactical branch. Observer Krell, 9 addressed the assembly again. The Matrix has completed analysis of the human participant. A projection appeared beside the board. Dr. Grant's psychological profile, decision patterns, strategic tendencies. The Matrix had simulated thousands of potential thinking pathways. It was not only predicting moves, it was predicting thought. Victory probability remains 99.97%. Several delegates began recording the event. A historic demonstration. Humanity's first defeat by perfect intelligence. Dr. Grant quietly arranged his pieces on a simple wooden board. No neural interface. No scanners. Just carved black and white pieces. Behind him, Ambassador Park remained silent. Watching the chamber. Watching the Vathek. Watching the Matrix. The first move appeared on the holographic board. The game had begun. And according to the Convergence Matrix, the ending was already known. The opening moves passed quickly. The Convergence Matrix projected each move seconds before it happened. Grant reached for a piece. The hologram displayed the move first. Then Grant placed the piece exactly where predicted. Again and again, the Matrix remained perfect. Observer Krell, 9 narrated calmly. Human strategy corresponds with predicted pathways. The chamber relaxed. The demonstration had returned to its original purpose. Proof of Vathek's superiority. After 12 moves, the Matrix displayed the projected outcome. 7 moves until human defeat. Grant's position weakened. His defenses collapsing exactly as calculated. Several delegates quietly left their seats. The result seemed inevitable. Dr. Grant studied the board silently. Then he moved his knight. The chamber paused. The piece moved to a square where it accomplished nothing. Even beginner chess players avoided positions like that. The Convergence Matrix recalculated. Prediction accuracy shifted slightly. 99.97, 99.96, a microscopic fluctuation. But it was the first time in centuries the Matrix had adjusted its certainty. And Krell, 9 noticed. The Matrix corrected its model. Human error probability increased. The game continued. 3 moves later, Dr. Grant did something far stranger. He sacrificed his queen. In chess, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. And Grant traded it for a single pawn. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The move had no logical explanation. No strategic advantage. Just loss. The Convergence Matrix recalculated again. Prediction accuracy dropped. 84%, 62%, 41%. Across the orbital processor network, additional computational clusters activated. Lights across the chamber dimmed as energy was redirected to the Matrix. The machine searched billions of strategic patterns. Hidden traps. Advanced sacrifice theory. Psychological deception. Nothing matched the move. Because the move was not strategic. Across the board, Dr. Tobias Grant calmly adjusted another piece. While the most powerful predictive intelligence ever created struggled to explain a single human decision. For the first time in 4 centuries, the Convergence Matrix could not see the future clearly. And the chamber understood something was very wrong. The Convergence Matrix expanded its calculations. Across the orbital lattice, thousands of processor nodes activated. The machine searched every strategic model it possessed. Sacrifice theory. Hidden gambits. Delayed positional traps. The queen's sacrifice had to mean something. Machines do not misunderstand patterns. The holographic board exploded with probability trees. Billions of possible explanations branched outward. Observer Krell, 9 addressed the chamber again. The Matrix is recalibrating. The statement was meant to sound calm. But several alien delegates noticed something unusual. The machine had never required recalibration before. Dr. Tobias Grant remained silent. He studied the board with the same quiet patience. Then he made another move. A bishop slide. A simple move. Not aggressive. Not defensive. Just slightly misplaced. The Matrix recalculated again. Prediction accuracy dropped further. 41%, 38%, 31%. The chamber grew uneasy. For the first time in Vathek history, the Convergence Matrix was not predicting the future. It was chasing it. The Matrix began diverting more power. Lights across the chamber dimmed slightly. The machine expanded its predictive horizon. Instead of analyzing the board alone, it began modeling Grant's mind again. Memory patterns. Decision triggers. Behavioral anomalies. It searched for the reason behind the chaos. But every model produced the same contradiction. Grant's decisions were irrational. Observer Krell, 9 spoke again. The human strategy contains no optimal pathway. A murmur spread through the galleries. The statement was unprecedented. Dr. Grant made his next move. He moved a pawn. A slow advance. A meaningless square. The matrix recalculated. Prediction accuracy fell again. 31%, 24%, 19%. Several delegates began recording more carefully. What had started as a demonstration of Vathek's superiority was becoming something else. The Convergence Matrix was not collapsing, but it was no longer certain. And uncertainty was something the Vathek had not experienced for centuries. The Vathek Collective communicated silently across their internal network. Thousands of analysts connected to the Convergence Matrix reviewed the match in real time. Every strategic model returned the same conclusion. The human moves contained no consistent pattern. Krell, 9 remained perfectly still, but its voice changed slightly. The Matrix requests additional analysis time. That sentence had never been spoken in the assembly before. Ambassador Helena Park finally spoke. Of course. Her tone was polite. Calm. No pressure. No triumph. Just quiet patience. The chamber understood the implication. Humanity was not rushing the machine. They were letting it struggle. Dr. Grant made another move. A rook shift. Simple. Almost careless. Yet the matrix hesitated again. Prediction accuracy dropped. 19%. 14% for the first time in recorded history. The Convergence Matrix could not produce a dominant probability path. The future had become uncertain. Across the orbital lattice surrounding the Convergence Matrix, new processor clusters activated. The machine increased its search range. Instead of calculating millions of outcomes, it calculated trillions. But the deeper it searched, the worse the paradox became. Because every model assumed one simple rule: rational decision-making. And Dr. Tobias Grant was not playing rationally. He made another move. Quiet. Unremarkable. A knight reposition. The matrix recalculated. Prediction accuracy fell again. 14%. 9%. The chamber fell silent. Observer Krell, 9 spoke slowly. The Convergence Matrix is encountering non-modulable behavior. That sentence echoed across the chamber. Non-modulable behavior. In other words, the machine could not understand the human mind. Dr. Grant looked at the board one more time, then calmly moved his rook. And for the first time, the Convergence Matrix predicted nothing at all. The chamber had never heard the Convergence Matrix hesitate before. For centuries, its predictions had flowed continuously, probability pathways unfolding across the air like glowing constellations. Now those constellations were gone. Only the board remained. Observer Krell, 9 stood motionless beside the holographic projection. 6 reflective eyes studied the pieces as new calculations streamed through the orbital processors surrounding the matrix. Trillions of simulations executed in seconds. Still, the result refused to stabilize. The system displayed a message rarely seen by the Vathek Collective. No dominant probability path detected. A quiet ripple passed through the council galleries. Across hundreds of civilizations, the Convergence Matrix had become a symbol of certainty. Certainty meant safety. Certainty meant control. And certainty was now missing. Dr. Tobias Grant remained perfectly still. His expression had not changed since the beginning of the match. He studied the board with calm patience. Then he moved a pawn forward 1 square. A slow, ordinary movement. Yet the pieces on the board began to form a subtle alignment. Several observers leaned closer. The pattern was not obvious, not strategic, not even efficient, but something about the placement felt intentional. The matrix recalculated again. The processors searched deeper, but the pattern remained invisible. Because the Convergence Matrix was searching for strategy, and the human mind was building something else entirely. The Vathek analysts expanded the matrix search parameters. New variables were introduced. Psychological deception, randomized play, unstructured decision-making. The Convergence Matrix began simulating Grant's mind again, running billions of hypothetical decision trees. Each model attempted to explain the human strategy. Each model failed, because every calculation depended on one assumption: that intelligent beings seek optimal outcomes. Grant's decisions violated that assumption repeatedly. His queen's sacrifice still dominated the analysis. The Matrix had spent the last 3 minutes trying to understand it, trying to find the hidden logic, trying to explain the irrational. Observer Krell, 9 addressed the chamber again. The Matrix cannot determine strategic intent. The statement caused a quiet disturbance among the delegates. The Convergence Matrix had predicted wars decades before they occurred, yet it could not determine the intent of a single chess player. Dr. Grant remained silent. He rotated a rook slightly between his fingers before placing it down again. Another quiet move. Another piece placed in a position that appeared inefficient. But slowly the pieces formed connections across the board, lines invisible to the machine. The matrix recalculated again, but the more it searched, the further the answer moved away. Across the chamber, several non-Vathek delegates began to notice something unusual. The human pieces were no longer scattered randomly. They were converging. Slowly, quietly. Grant's earlier irrational moves had forced the matrix to ignore certain possibilities. Every time the machine encountered an illogical decision, it removed that branch from its strategic model. The queen's sacrifice had eliminated thousands of logical pathways. The misplaced knight had removed thousands more. The pawn advance narrowed the board even further. One by one, the matrix had pruned its own probability tree, until only a few possibilities remained. But those possibilities had all been calculated after the irrational moves. The true threat had been created before them. Krell, 9 requested another analysis cycle. The matrix executed trillions of simulations again. For the first time, a possible tactical sequence appeared. 3 moves long. A trap. But the probability remained extremely low. The machine hesitated, because that sequence depended on moves it had already labeled irrational. And irrational decisions were filtered from optimal strategy. Dr. Tobias Grant calmly reached for his rook. The piece slid forward, and the hidden alignment became clear. The Convergence Matrix attempted one final recalculation. All remaining processor clusters activated. The orbital lattice surrounding the supercomputer pulsed with energy as trillions of possibilities were evaluated simultaneously. Every defensive option was tested. Every escape route simulated. Every counterattack modeled. Each simulation returned the same conclusion. Too late. The trap had formed several moves earlier, hidden behind decisions the matrix had dismissed as meaningless. Observer Krell, 9 spoke slowly. The matrix confirms a forced tactical sequence. The chamber fell silent. Grant moved his next piece. Check. The board froze for a moment. The matrix attempted one final prediction, but now the probabilities had reversed. Victory pathways for the Vathek Collective had vanished. Only one future remained: defeat. For the first time in 4 centuries, the Convergence Matrix had encountered a system it could not control. Not chaos, not randomness, something far more dangerous: human creativity. Dr. Tobias Grant calmly adjusted the final pieces of the trap, and the galaxy watched the moment when certainty finally broke. The chamber remained silent for several long seconds. Across the holographic board, the Convergence Matrix displayed the final calculation. No defensive path available. No escape sequence. No alternative outcome. Observer Krell, 9 confirmed it. The Matrix recognizes unavoidable defeat. The statement echoed through the assembly. For 4 centuries, the Convergence Matrix had represented certainty. Certainty had guided the Vathek Collective. Certainty had shaped galactic politics. And certainty had just collapsed on a simple wooden chessboard. Dr. Tobias Grant placed the final piece. Checkmate. The holographic projections faded slowly. Probability branches vanished from the air. The Convergence Matrix powered down its predictive models. Across the chamber, delegates from dozens of civilizations stared at the board in disbelief. The perfect predictive intelligence of the Vathek Collective had been defeated by a single human player. Observer Krell, 9 finally turned toward the human delegation. Its posture had changed. Not weakness, but curiosity. A new tone entered its voice. How? Behind Dr. Grant, Ambassador Helena Park stepped forward. Calm, measured, unhurried, because the demonstration had worked exactly as humanity intended. Ambassador Park looked at the board, then at the silent chamber. The Convergence Matrix searched for strategy. Her voice remained quiet. But Dr. Grant was not playing strategy. Several alien delegates exchanged confused looks. Park continued. Your machine predicts rational decisions. The chamber listened carefully. Every model it built assumed the player would attempt to win using optimal logic. She gestured toward the board. But Dr. Grant's moves were never based on logic. Observer Krell, 9 processed the statement. Clarify. Park smiled slightly. The sequence of moves followed a pattern. The chamber leaned closer. A human lullaby. The room went completely still. The first song his mother sang to him when he was a child. Grant's earlier irrational moves suddenly made sense. They had never been random. They had followed the rhythm of memory. A pattern created from emotion. Something impossible for the Convergence Matrix to predict. Because the machine searched for victory, while the human mind had been telling a story, the Convergence Matrix recalculated once more. But this time it was not searching for victory. It was analyzing the lesson. Observer Krell, 9 addressed the chamber. The Matrix acknowledges a limitation. A quiet murmur passed through the delegates. For 4 centuries we believed uncertainty could be eliminated. The alien observer turned toward the human delegation again. But human cognition introduces variables beyond predictive modeling. Ambassador Park nodded politely. Creativity. Krell, 9 studied the humans carefully. Then it made a statement that changed the tone of the entire assembly. The Vathek Collective revises its projection. A new probability graph appeared. Human expansion models updated. Trade networks recalculated. Arcadia Station, the human frontier colony, appeared within the new projection. The previous prediction of collective oversight vanished, replaced by a different outcome. Human civilization classified as strategically unpredictable partner species. Several delegates reacted immediately. The Vathek had never revised a public prediction before. The balance of authority inside the chamber had shifted. Ambassador Park simply inclined her head. No celebration, no speech, because the demonstration had already proven its point. The Convergence Matrix could predict the future, but humanity could change it, and that made all the difference.